Hello! Today I thought we would make some soap using coffee grounds. In fact, recycled coffee grounds, because it's something that an awful lot of households end up with, and you can reuse all of the coffee grounds when you've made your cups of coffee. But I'm not using regular ground coffee. These are coffee bags. So effectively, it's just like a tea bag, but filled with coffee grounds. So if you want all of the coffee flavour, but you don't want the bits, these could be a really great option for you. This particular lot is from a company called Taylor's of Harrogate. Now I'm actually going to be using the coffee grounds once we've soaked them. Now let's start out by actually making our coffee solution. I'm not going to be adding the coffee into the lye, and that's because when you add the coffee solution straight into the lye, it often burns it and it ends up smelling really unpleasant. So I prefer to add it separately. Now I'm not being too precise about the amount that I weigh out here because I'm actually going to infuse this and then I'll weigh off the amount of the coffee that I actually need. And this is going to make up just under half of my actual water amount. So some of my water will go in with my lye, and then this strong coffee brew will go into the soap. And the great thing about this is that we're wetting down the coffee grounds, and that's going to help us to get better result from the coffee in the soap. And I'll talk more about that as we go through. So the next thing I need to do is to make up my lye solution. For the total batch, I need 120 grams of water. I'm going to use 70 grams for my lye solution, and then I'll put the other 50 grams as my coffee. I just want 55 grams of the sodium hydroxide, and I'm just going to set that aside. So for my main soap recipe, I've got 80 grams of beautiful coconut oil. I'm using 120 grams of responsibly sourced palm oil, and I'm just going to melt these down together before we add in the liquid oil. Now that my coconut and my palm oil are melted, I'm going to add in my olive oil. I'm using 200 grams of olive oil and just mix it really well. Next, I'm just going to pour off a small amount of the oil into a separate container. And to that, I'm going to add just a little bit of brown iron oxide. Just give that a really thorough mixing. It's actually better if you can mix this in advance, but I'm a little bit slack today and hadn't bothered. So the next thing is to weigh off the coffee that I need, because if you remember in our lye solution, we only used 70 grams of the water, and I need another 50 grams of my coffee. So let's add that into the oils now. Have a cloth. Have you ever seen anyone make quite so much mess with a pot of coffee? And to that, I'm going to add our lye solution. So these are now beautifully steeped. And this is the best time to use your coffee grounds, because if you use them dry, you often end up with what's called a halo effect. And that basically is where the coffee grounds start sucking up the moisture because they're dry, and then they bleed when they're in the soap and they look much larger than you necessarily want them to be. Whereas if you're using coffee grounds that have been used, they're already wet and you don't seem to get as much of the bleeding taking place. So I'm going to split this between two. I'm going to add my fragrance oil. I'm going to darken this a little bit with the brown oxide. Can you put me some white in? And then we've got some titanium dioxide that's mixed with some olive oil, and we're going to add that to the remainder. Ooh, lovely. Need another jug for this, and what we're going to do is bring the mould forward. We're going to pour some of the soap in here, and then we're just going to pour a few thin lines onto the top, and then we're going to pour it into one of the cavities, and hopefully it's going to give us a really nice swirl. And we're just going to repeat that for each one. Nice thin wiggly lines on the top. So it's cutting through a little bit, which is even better. And then dump it in. Top that one off actually. Pour more in. More wiggly lines. And get it into the mould. And that's going to be the last one. And there we go. I hope this comes out with a beautiful swirl. In my head, it's going to look stunning, but let's wait and see. So I'm going to pop this into the oven just on a really, really low heat. So I'm actually going to preheat the oven to 80 degrees Celsius. And then I'm going to turn the oven off and pop these in once the oven is actually off. So the oven will just be warm, and it's just going to kick this a little bit and just help it on its way. So I would love to know, do you already make coffee soap? And if so, what method do you use? There are so many different ways that you can make it. It's always lovely to hear from you. Let's check this out in just a moment and see what it looks like. Well, look at these beauties. Oh, how gorgeous are these? The colour is absolutely lovely. I'm so loving these. Let's pop these out and let's have a look at what the swirls are like on the other side of our beautiful recycled coffee ground soap. It's been 2 days since I made them. And look at the design. Look how pretty that is. Each one is going to be completely unique. Look at the gorgeous marbling on these. And you can still see all of the coffee grounds in there too. I wonder which one will be your favourite. Oh, that one's really nice around that side. That's definitely got more stripes to it. Around this side, it's almost like a zigzag pattern. Really lovely design. And that one's really bold too. These are absolutely great. Loving those. Well, I think that the colour and the design on that is really, really lovely. I'd love to know what you think though. And although I've used individual moulds, you could do this same type of thing in a loaf mould. But I think the colour is great. I really like it. And you can see there's no bleeding of any of the coffee grounds. And this is the thing, because we've pre-wet them, they haven't bled, and it's allowed us to get a much better look to our coffee soap. Thank you so much for spending time with me. I really appreciate it. I can't wait to see you again with me really, really soon. Bye-bye for now.